My job is all about purpose.
Just the ability to make a difference, to help someone be able to go home at the end of the day.
My great-grandfather started the volunteer fire department in Springfield, Nebraska. My grandmother was a nurse. My uncle was a fire chief in Atlanta, Georgia. So somewhere down the line, it was my purpose to be doing this.
Yeah, we're a family here.
The data we get from Rapid SOS is life-saving.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
The girl ended up passing away. The guy was taken into custody. And I believe he's in prison now. I don't know for how many years. The officer, ended up okay. But it's one of those things where you realize, man, monsters are real. Like, I don't know what happened. And no one ever will. I don't know that the person ever said, or if they tried to play it off like it was an accident or anything like that. I don't know. But I'll never forget that yell, that scream for shots being fired, officer hit, and everything going to hell in those few moments.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading AI company in public safety. Big shout out to subscribers as always. Thank you for everything. It is April 4th, the day before Easter. And yeah, I'm recording this on a Saturday morning. As I mentioned in a few episodes ago, one of the things that I did early on when I was recording the podcast is there were episodes that I recorded where it was just me talking. And I really enjoyed those episodes as well, because it's just kind of me reflecting on a lot of things that I went through when I was in dispatch, some of the calls, but also some things that are going on currently. So we are leading up to National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and there are going to be a lot of stories that are going to be shared. I might do a solo episode as well, where I'm sharing a lot of these thank yous as well as most rewarding moments. And that's what I'm calling the series as well. Moments, most rewarding, proud of. And what I did was I wanted 911 professionals to just record a video. And you can still do this now, because what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing a lot of those videos throughout the rest of the year leading up to August 24th, 2026, which will be the official 10-year anniversary of the birth of the I Am 911 movement. And I already have a lot of videos coming in, and I'll be putting out even more. So please send them in. You can send them to the email of wttpodcast@gmail.com, or wherever you end up seeing any of the clips on social media, whether it be LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, X, YouTube, any of those. You can inbox them as well. So I will get all of them, and I'm, again, going to be sharing them out throughout the rest of the year. I also have a new challenge coin that is going to be coming in, and I'll just show it here on camera. For those who are listening on the audio only, it is a gold coin with a rope edge, black, all black in the middle for black and gold, and then it has hashtag I am 911 with the thin gold line running through the middle of it. On the other side, I'll just show it here on camera really quick. It says, in the moment of crisis, I am the voice within the trenches. And then in the middle, in gold and black lettering, it says, I am the one who keeps you calm. I am the one who sends you help. I am the nameless, the faceless, the unsung hero of public safety. And the new challenge coin, well, I'll say this really quick. For this challenge coin alone, this is exclusive to the Imagine Listening sessions only. It's not for trade, it's not for sale, nothing like that. But for the new one that is coming in, it is a 10-year anniversary challenge coin that I'll be giving out at the Imagine Listening sessions. That one is going to be available for purchase or trade. So I'm excited for that. If you are going to be at the Navigator Conference, I am hoping that I have them back in time for that conference. I told them I needed them by that time, so hopefully I can get it before that session. I am really excited. It's going to be in a ballroom, and the last I looked, which was just a few days ago, there were only 7 spots left. So if you have not checked in on your app to be able to be in that class, make sure to do so. Otherwise, you know what? Just go ahead and sneak in. There is nothing wrong with standing room only. So you have that there. Hopefully that doesn't make the Navigator Conference mad, but it happens all the time. There are tons of people that are in the session, and it's not just my session, a lot of different sessions, and people will be standing or sometimes sitting on the floor. So get in there and participate. Let's do this. With that said, recently I posted something, and it's the premise of this whole episode. So I will give a warning. Some things might be a little dark, but if you've listened to this podcast, you know there are a lot of dark things. So there's your warning. There was a warning at the beginning of the episode as well. So you've got 2 warnings here now. But I had put something out on social media. It was a video that I put out there, and I was asking the question of what dispatch has taught you about humanity. And really the title is what dispatch taught me about humanity. And then I was asking everyone else. So before I go through some of what I had put on there, I want to read a couple that a few dispatchers, there's a bunch of them, but I just chose 3 really quick for the beginning of this episode. So the first one here says how fragile life can be and that miracles are most certainly real. That's a good one right there. It's true. It is very true. Another one here says there are a lot of givers and takers in the world. Learn when you need to be one or the other, and it never hurts to just be kind. I like that. Another person here says, at the end of the day, we are all stronger and more capable than we realize. Whether it be the dispatcher keeping calm and composed while helping the caller, or the caller following direction to help the person in need, we all come together and it's kind of full circle. And another good one right there. And this person is right. Very much a full circle moment when someone is calling in for help. They are helping the person in need, and we are in turn helping that caller and that person in need. And it all comes together. So for me, what I had said was three things that I wanted to mention in that video. Three things that we're going to discuss here today in this episode. That monsters are real. Monsters are real. They are all human. Also, life is short. And then finally, although life is short, life is also beautiful. And 911 is rewarding. So let's start with monsters are real. Because when you get into dispatch, you realize and you're able to connect. And I know I've said this many times, I'll say it again, because it makes so much sense. That Scooby-Doo back in the day was preparing us as kids, even though we didn't know it. We're preparing us early on to when we were old enough to understand. Because if you think about the cartoon, I mean, they get these calls to investigate these mysteries, right? And there are all these different monsters and all this stuff that's going on. But in the end, when they pull the mask off, those monsters are human. Those monsters are real. So when you get into dispatch, that becomes even more of a reality because you realize how much those monsters are real. So I think about a call. I remember I was on radios, and it's the middle of the night, not a lot going on, and it's close to our shift being over as well. And as we're going through the shift, just talking, end up getting a radio transmission from a state trooper who says he's out at a specific address. This is in the most southwest corner of the county that I worked in. And he checks out there on a welfare check, just says that the family had called in, I guess, to the post, and they wanted him to go check on their daughter because the daughter was there with a boyfriend, and they didn't know if she was being held against her will or what, because I guess the last time they talked to her, something seemed off. And he went to go check. So he checked out there for a welfare check. Now here's the thing. When someone checks out on a call, and it's not the same at every center, at every ECC, every emergency communications center. Everyone has a different policy. So I'm only speaking from the center that I was at. When someone checks out on something, whether it be a traffic stop or at a house, whichever, on a complaint, got 3 minutes, and then we check on them. Now we have a code that would go out, and it means no checks. I don't need any checks. But for us, our policy was at the 15-minute mark, we check anyway. But it's either A 3-minute check or a 15-minute check. And when someone says that they're out somewhere and they don't need checks, we still check them after 15 minutes just to make sure. So it was a little weird when the officer had checked out there and said, I'll be such and such code, you know, no checks. I don't need any checks. And we're like, oh, okay. So we're sitting, right? We're just sitting and nothing else really going on. And I don't know, maybe about 4 to 5 minutes into the officer being out there, he keys up and yells out, shots fired, shots fired. Officer hit. And we sat up immediately, and I'm trying to get on the radio, and officers are already all checking in on the radio saying they're headed that way, and there are officers leaving from all over the county to go and back up this trooper. We're going through our motions, and what ended up happening was, the boyfriend was holding her there. And if I remember correctly, the officer was going through and checking rooms. And when he got to the bedroom that the boyfriend and the girl that he was looking for to check on, the room that they were at, he goes to open the door, and as soon as he opens the door, he sees the girl slumped over the bed and the boyfriend pointing a gun at him and shoots him, or shoots at him. He ends up getting shot in the hand, and like he falls back and gets out of the way and gets to safety. And we've got officers hauling ass over there. Again, this is close to the end of our shift. We end up getting relieved. And it's one of those things, and those who are listening to this who are in public safety, those who are in 911, you'll understand this. But for those who are not, have never worked in dispatch or anything like that, you might not understand. Or maybe you can connect it to something that you've lived through yourself. And what I'm getting at is, when you start a call like this, you don't want to leave it. You don't want to end it. Like, you want to see it through. And I remember it was at that point. We were at that point where nobody wanted to leave, and we finally had to be convinced, because at this point, SWAT is making their way over there. They're starting this perimeter. That person is now locked in that room with the girl. Our officer is safe. He got shot in the hand again, but officer is safe. And we end up leaving, because at this point, it's just them setting up perimeter. And there are a lot of different calls that happened. So I'm trying to keep, I can't remember if this was one of the calls where the suspect ended up calling in and my partner was talking to them, because there's two that are similar that I dealt with and my team. So I won't go down that road, because I can't remember specifically if it was this call or if it was the other call that I'm thinking about. But what I remember from that is, when we left, when I went home, and it's about a 45-minute drive, I'm just driving in silence, because I'm wondering, what happened? Is the officer okay? Because even though I knew that the officer was safe, ultimately safe, I didn't know right off the bat that the officer had been shot in the hand. So at this point, my team and I, all we know is that the officer was shot and the shots were fired and all this stuff is going down. The detail that I gave you a moment ago is detail that I learned afterwards, all that had happened. I remember that when I got home, it took a little while for me to fall asleep. And when I finally did, I only slept for about 3 or so hours. I remember getting online to find local news to see if I could find what all was there. And what I find is a picture of the SWAT team. It's daylight now, and they have surrounded the house. And when I saw where the house was, I thought, no way. I've driven by that house many times. I know exactly where that is. The girl ended up passing away. The guy was taken into custody, and I believe he's in prison now. I don't know for how many years. The officer, ended up okay, but it's one of those things where you realize, man, monsters are real. Like I don't know what happened, and no one ever will. I don't know that the person ever said, or if they tried to play it off like it was an accident or anything like that. I don't know. But I'll never forget that yell, that scream for shots being fired, officer hit, and everything going to hell in those few moments. The next one I talk about, and a lot of people have talked about this on this podcast, where you have folks that call in and a lot of times when folks call in and people who call in multiple times, a lot of times it's just them calling in because they are lonely. They need someone to talk to. And you're there and and you talk to them and you just do your best with them on the phone. Is there anybody else that I can call for you? Like, no, I'm just, calling. Or you have people who call who are constantly arguing and getting into it with each other. And you send someone out and, nothing ever happens because they were just arguing. But they need someone there to just be in the middle. And I remember, and this is years and years ago now, I remember these two guys would call in and they lived together. And if you have ever watched like grumpier old men like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau, those two, the way they are with each other, arguing, calling each other names, like all kinds of stuff, that is what these two guys reminded me of. Because when they would call in, it would be, so and so, um, they finished watching their show, but they won't give me the remote back. They won't give me the remote so that I can watch my show. And this is an argument that they're having. Now, to break it down a little bit, this is a domestic. It's not just a disturbance because they're living together. They're friends, right? But it's a verbal domestic type situation. And at my center, whether it was verbal, and especially if it's physical, we tone it out, which means lights and sirens. Like we would get on the radio and hit the button to key up, to speak, to open up the microphone to speak. And then there was another button for a tone that would go doo 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 doo, that is really loud, so that everyone, it gets their attention that something is coming in. Central to all stations and units, so verbal domestic at whatever address, available units advise. And then whatever unit that was close by would say that they're en route, and sometimes a secondary unit would go as backup. And the reason that we would tone out verbal domestics as well is because you never know what happens in 911 or in any situation in life. Anything can happen. Anything. That person could take that remote, and I chuckle a little bit, but it's true. It could happen. Could take the remote and use it as a weapon. Could just throw it at the person, clock him in the forehead or the eye or whichever. Now it's physical. The other person might get something else. Who knows? Anything can happen. That's why we tone it out. Another time they called was because they were both sitting at the table. They were eating cereal. One of them used all the milk, and they got upset, and they were arguing, so they called. One of them threw a spoon. Now it's physical. So again, anything can happen. Anything can happen. Well, I was taking multiple calls from them. And those two examples that I gave, those were my calls. Those were ones that I took. I remember changing of the channels, the remote, the cereal, the milk, spoons being thrown, chairs getting moved, or someone sitting in their favorite chair and not getting out. All of it seems outrageous, right? But in this line of work, no matter how outrageous it sounds, you send everyone, or you tone it out for everyone, and then they decide who's going to go. We don't control that. So I wasn't the only one taking these calls. There were other people who were taking calls as well. And after a while, there were no calls from them. And I actually started to wonder what happened to them. Now, there's a thing that happens too in 911, and I'm sure this happens in healthcare work and, other things where you have people who call in a lot. And a lot of times for those who are elderly and lonely and they just want someone to talk to, they have no one left. So they just call in to talk. Eventually, they don't call in anymore because they either moved or they've passed away. And I've spoken to a lot of dispatchers who have gone through that, where the person that they had, they don't call in anymore. Some of them, they end up kind of missing a little bit because they were the ones who would call in. And sometimes they would call in just to say, thank you for the job that you do, believe it or not. Now, in this situation that I'm talking about with these two people, it was a little different, and actually way more different, as we're talking about how monsters are real, but they are all human. And for myself, it's not anything I ever thought was going to happen. So I'm wondering what happened to these people. During this time, also, there is some crazy shit going on in the county. In the sense that there was a family that was I guess kind of they were basically all over the news because of some family abuse that had been going on throughout a generation or so. Like a lot of this was happening to a lot of people. And I remember kind of following this, but I never thought to connect any dots. So one day, one morning, I'm talking to one of my sergeants who is no longer there. Unfortunately, they passed away years ago. But during this time, I'm talking to this sergeant, and I said, I used to get phone calls from these two guys, and I gave their names, and for the life of me, I can't remember their names now. Again, this was years ago, but I had given their names, and I said, I haven't heard from them in a long time. And the person says to me, well, one of those people moved. They're not around there anymore. And I said, oh, well, that makes sense. I said, huh, okay. I said, well, I wonder what happened to the other person. And they said, they're no longer living. And I said, oh, I, I had no idea. The person had passed away in a fire. And I said, holy crap. I said, I didn't know any of that. Apparently, it must have been when I was on a vacation or it happened during my days off. And no one ever really said anything because unless there's, I guess, some sort of connection or whatever, like sometimes, a lot of times we pass on information, right? But nobody knew from other shifts that I was talking a lot with those people. So no one would have ever thought to tell me, hey, one of those guys that you used to talk to a lot in those verbal domestics is gone. He died in a house fire. Well, here's the thing. I end up asking, like, well, I wonder if the family's going to look into that. And I'm told, yeah, probably not. I don't know that they're going to look into that. And I said, oh, well, that's kind of odd. And the person goes, not really. You know that abuse thing that's been going on? And I said, yeah. And they said, that person was the one who started it all. And I just remember standing there thinking, no way. That was a twist that I was not expecting. Because again, these two people were always calling in and never would have thought there was any of that going on. And then it gets to this. I don't know any other detail. I don't know how it went down. Again, this was years and years ago, but it was, and who knows, the person who told me, they might not have had all the information. They probably heard it from somewhere else too. So who knows what all is completely um out there, but that's just one of those things where you end up finding out one way or another monsters are real. And apparently that person was a monster and that person is gone now. It's a crazy thing. Again, stuff you don't hear about in the news. And maybe it did end up in the news. I just don't know. I don't know. But that's my connection to those things and what I found out later on. And I just thought, wow, hopefully the family was able to heal in whatever way they were able to heal. So moving on from there, talking about how monsters are real. Now, you also learn when you get into dispatch that life is short. Life is short. And two calls I want to bring up. Because no one is promised the next day. No one is promised later on in the day. I mean, that's how fast it can happen, right? But when you're in dispatch, you find how fast it can be. I remember getting a phone call from a guy. He's freaking out. He's in a car with his brother, and they're driving back from a funeral. And the funeral is for one of their family members. And I can't remember the relation to the family, but either way, they had just lost someone close to them. And they're pulled over on the side of the road. I've got help coming to them. But when he calls in, he's telling me, I was just driving with my brother and he just stopped. He like froze and he went forward and he ended up just like slumped over the dashboard. And we're now doing CPR. Now here's the thing, you have to have someone flat on their back. It's part of our protocol. We tell them to get the person flat on their back to do CPR. And his brother was a little bigger in size, and he was unable to get him out of the car. And he just kept yelling, help me any way that you can help me. And the only thing I could tell him to do was to put the seat back as far as possible. Now, I know that there's a huge possibility that that is not going to work because we are taught, we are trained to instruct people to get them flat on their back in order for the compressions and the air and like everything to work the way it's supposed to. But in this moment, with this person who cannot get them out of the car, you do anything that you can to try to help that caller, to help that person. And hell, maybe some of those seats can recline that far back to be back enough to do something. So I'm going to do everything that I can to help that person, to help their brother. So I tell him, and he takes the seatbelt off, puts the seat, reclines the seat as far back as possible to almost being flat on their back. And he's in there doing CPR. And I just remember him while he's doing compressions and I'm counting with him saying, don't leave me. Don't do this. We just lost somebody. And then he's telling me we were just coming back from a funeral. And he's just going and going. And as this is going on, I'm imagining my own brother. Because again, we're empaths and we put ourselves in the caller's shoes to connect and understand what they're going through. Again, to be able to connect deeper with that person so that they know that they're not alone, that someone is there who cares, that wants to help them, and who is trying to help them as much as possible. And we get people out there, and I honestly don't remember if the brother made it or not. I'm going to be honest. I don't think the brother made it. But that's just one of those moments that shows you how short life can be. Because they were just coming back from a funeral. Someone from their own family. And like that, the brother is in cardiac arrest, and my caller is performing CPR. Other moments deal with a lot of times in the morning when I would get there. The one stint that I had working mornings, 4:30 a.m. to 4:30 in the afternoon. And even when I was on nights, 4:30 in the afternoon to 4:30 in the morning, there were early mornings where people would wake up to their spouses who had passed in their sleep. Blue, cold to the touch, asking them, do you feel that they're beyond CPR, that they're beyond help? A lot of times, people would say yes. Other times, people would say, I don't know, please just help me. And even when sometimes people would say, yes, they're beyond help, they would change their minds a few minutes later and they would say, I want to try at least. I want to at least try. Okay. And then we go through the motions. So, there's moments like that. People who have been married for years and are now calling out to them, don't leave me. Don't leave me. Or I love you. Please stay. Or I can't do this without you. We've all heard it. It sticks with us. Talking about it, as I've said for years, definitely helps. And I think a lot of us have taken a similar call where someone has awakened to a spouse who's passed away, or someone who has fallen to the side of the bed and has been stuck. And their elderly spouse can't get them out of there. Life is short. But life is also beautiful. And 911 is rewarding. Even with all of this dark stuff that I just talked about. Life is also beautiful. So, in the beautiful sense of it, just helping people. But also, it's a scary moment when a parent calls in and their child is choking and you help them with the Heimlich and they get it out and you hear the kid or adult or whichever For me, it was a kid, and the mom, after yelling and swearing at me because what I heard in the background in the beginning of the call is like thudding, like a thud over and over. And it's the parent who's like slamming the kids back to try to, get them to cough it up. And I'm telling her, don't hit your kid on the back because it could get it stuck more. Now, as I'm telling her not to hit the kid in the back, before I get to that part, she goes, "Well, what do you want me to do? Let my kid fucking choke or fucking die?" One of the two. The F-bomb was definitely in there, but I remember saying to her, "No, no, no, no. I'm telling you this because you could get it stuck more." So then we start going through the motions and the kid ends up coughing it out. Now, EMS and everybody's already headed that way. But to hear the kid like like take that breath and then mom just lose it right after that. In happiness, that is. And then to say thank you. It's a good feeling. It's a rewarding moment. It's a life is beautiful moment. And I remember the caller even apologizing to me. I'm sorry for yelling at you and saying, what I said. And I said, don't worry about it. I probably would have said the same thing. Like, I've got kids too. I understand. And, you might get a moment to reflect and then you might not. You might have to go right to the next call, but that good moment and feeling is still inside and in the back of your head. I remember a call that came in once. It was right after shift change. People are getting home from work. And during this time, I can't remember what year it was, but it was a recession that was going on. And a lot of factories were being closed. And I remember this guy calling in. And he says, "I just lost my job. And I'm going to lose my wife. I'm going to lose everything. And I don't think I can't live anymore. I can't do this." So I'm talking with him and we're getting help headed that way. And I'm telling him that things are going to be okay. There's another way. Like you don't have to do this. And he's got a rifle and he says, "Well, I'm not going to be the one to do it." And I said, "Excuse me?" And I said, he goes, I have my gun on me, but I'm waiting for your officer to get here. I'm going to point it at him to shoot because I want suicide by cop." And I remember I typed all this information in there and I sent an MCT message. MCTs are the laptops that are connected to our system so that we can send all of the information to whichever officers that are going out there, but also officers who are not going out there. They can go into that complaint and they can read that. But you can send direct messages to officers as well. And I sent a direct message to the officer that was going out there, a good friend of mine. And I told him, "This person wants suicide by cop. Please be careful." And he responds back, "Don't worry." And I'm still talking to the person. And I said, "Listen, you don't want to go out that way. And he had kids, so I'm talking to him about his kids, about life, about things that he's into, like connecting on that human level. And I remember he starts crying. He starts crying and he says no. He goes, there's no other way. Like I'm losing everything. And I said, listen, we're going to help you. We're going to help you. And we just continue talking, and he's still crying. And I felt so bad for this guy. But I'm able to get him to put his gun down. My officer gets out there, and he ends up talking with him, and we saved that guy. Now, this was years ago. I don't know whatever happened to this person. I hope you're okay. I hope you were able to get through that time, and that you were able to rise above, and that you made it through. I hold that as a rewarding moment because we helped save that person. No matter what happened after that, and that moment, with that outcome, we saved that person. But again, I hope that you're okay. I hope that you ended up okay. Whew. Life is beautiful. I haven't thought about that call in a long time. Another call, and this is the last one I'll bring up here as we go into the wrap up of this episode. This one recently came up just a few days ago, and I hadn't thought about this call in a long time either. But this is another rewarding moment, something that I'm proud of. It was the middle of the night, and this guy calls in because his wife is I, I believe basically having symptoms of almost like a heart attack, but he didn't want to stop. He was trying to get to the nearest hospital, to the nearest ER. And a lot of times when people are driving, we tell them to pull over so that we can send EMS that way. Again, this is the middle of the night. They're in the furthest northwest corner of the county, almost into the next county, because this person is driving to Holland Hospital, but they don't know how to get, he doesn't know how to get there fast enough. And he tells me where he's at. And as I've said in the past, I feel like some of these calls are meant for us because of whatever experience we have in our past that we're able to help someone or connect in a deeper way with that person. And I feel that this call was meant for me because this person wasn't going to stop. There was no convincing this person to stop for EMS to get there. So I ask where they're at that moment. And he tells me, and I knew exactly where he was. Exactly. Because I used to drive that road all the time. And I said to him, because he goes, we're coming up to the highway. And I said, there's a lot of lights that you're going to end up hitting if you take the way that you want to take. I said, you're going to be coming up to a Burger King on the left, on the corner. And on that corner as well is like a convenience store. And he goes, I see it. I see it. I said, turn left right now. Turn left. So the person turns left. And as they're driving, I tell him, you're going to continue on that road until it comes to a T. And you can't go anywhere else. You only turn left or right. Turn right. You're going to turn right. So while he's on the phone, I'm sending a message to one of my partners. I've got all of the information, name, phone number, vehicle, description of the vehicle, but also, most importantly, the patient, the person who's in the vehicle going through what they're going through, age, what their symptoms, all of it. And I pass it over to my partner and I say, I need you to call the emergency room, let them know that they're on their way there. And I'm telling you where they're coming from right now. So they're not far away. They get to the T, he turns right. And I'm like, okay, you're going to keep going on this road until you get to. And then I tell them the road name. Once you get there, you're going to see traffic lights. There's going to be a CVS on the right. And you're going to see, all of these others in front of you. You turn left at that traffic light. They get there, they turn left. And the guy's going, how do you know all of this? Are you following me somehow? And I'm like, I know exactly where you're at because I go through there. I've gone through there for years. So I know where it's at. It's like, you're turning left. I said, you should be passing by actually another Burger King that's on your right. Domino's is on the left. And he's like, yes, it is. I said, okay, you should see. And he goes, I see the ER. And I said, okay, that first traffic light that you come up to, past another little gas station and an oil change place, you're going to turn left because the ER is first. So you turn left at the light to go to the ER. He's like, I see the sign. I said, follow it. And he goes, we're pulling up right now. Thank you. Thank you, he says. And I said, you're welcome. And, we hang up. And I sit there for a moment. And my partners are like, good job, dude. And I said, thanks. And they're like, it's a good thing you were the one who answered that call because we wouldn't have known everything that you just did. Now, I don't know what happened from there. There's no closure on that one. But as I tell people all the time, even though we don't always get closure, or even though a call might not have the outcome that we wanted, because we want to save everyone, right? Um, we can give ourselves grace knowing that we were there for the caller in their time of need, and they were not alone. So that's another rewarding moment. Um, a moment that I'm proud of. That I was able to help those people because I knew exactly where they were. And that's how this profession is, man. There are ups and downs. Sometimes there's a lot more downs. In 911, there's definitely way more downs than there are ups. But we got to hold on to those ups. And we have to work towards being okay to talk about those downs. Because talking about those downs can lead to those ups and can help those others in our profession when they are down. So we can talk and share, not only because it's therapeutic for us, but it'll be therapeutic for them as well to know that they're not the only ones going through these things. That's why I do what I do. But even though there's a lot of dark, there's a lot of light, there's a lot of rewarding. And we've gone through that here today in this episode. And to everyone who is in this profession, thank you for what you do. And for those who are watching and listening who are on the outside of the profession, this is what dispatch is like. And it's not to, I don't share these stories to scare anyone. This is just the reality. I share them because they're important, powerful, and impactful stories. And it is rewarding. And damn, there are so many more resources out there now, and so many more people talking about these things and wanting to help and support each other and find some form of closure through the power of storytelling. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I've enjoyed being here with you, breaking down a couple times. But again, that's what this is all about. And it's okay to do so. So again, thank you all for everything. And we've got more episodes coming up. But this was a solo based off of that question. What has dispatch taught me about humanity? And those were just 3 things that I wanted to focus on. I might have to share some of this during open mic just to see what people say. I mean, there are a lot of funny moments as well. Maybe we'll do some of those funny ones on another episode, but I wanted to keep this for this. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for the support. And this has been an episode. But if you ever question your time in this profession or what you're doing, just know that even though you don't see it or hear it, your impact is felt throughout your career. One voice can make a difference, and that voice is all of yours. Because in these calls that I've talked about today, especially for the life is short, but life is beautiful, you hold so much power and connection just in your voice, but also your story. Keep doing what you do. Not a lot of people can do it. I am proud of every single one of you. Thank you. For those listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. And the easiest way to do this, however, is to just simply go to links.co/IM911. That is links with 2i's.co/IM911, and you'll find everything there. Email, social media, where to follow, as well as the latest episodes of Within the Trenches podcast, as well as the Imagine Listening podcast. The link is there to schedule an episode with me. And right underneath that as well is a link for the free community, The Trenches. I've got over 200 hours of continuing education there. Make sure to sign up. And we've got another public safety showcase that's going to be coming up, so make sure to check that out. We're going to be jumping back into the Dispatchers Roundtable, more panels and topics of all things 911. So join up there on the Trenches. Again, it's all free, so there's a lot of stuff that's within it. So make sure to check it out and drop a comment. All of that within the discussions channel that's on there, or discussion space for the Trenches. So make sure to check that out. Also, if you're looking for the Imagine Listening books, volume 1 and 2 are on there as well. And then finally, the last one that's on there is merch. If you're looking for any podcasts or dispatch merchandise, you'll be able to find it all there. Once again, that is links with 2i's.co/IM911. This can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, as well as X and LinkedIn Live. This episode is sponsored by Rapid SOS, Safer Together, the leading AI company in public safety. And you can listen to the podcast 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one.
Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life, through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years, I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But Imagine Listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.